I'd like to call this meeting of the Infrastructure Economic Development Committee to order. First order of business is the Pledge of Allegiance, in case someone's changed their mind.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Right before we do the adoption of the agenda, I would like to suggest that perhaps we could move item 7B, the budget amendment for public works, up to be item 5B after public participation, in the interest of accommodating some schedules. So if somebody was willing to make a motion to approve the adoption of the agenda with that change, I would appreciate it. Okay, got a motion by Leonetti and supported by Representative, or not Representative, yeah, Commissioner Lucido. So please vote on your agenda, or rather your iPad. Yeah. All right, the motion is approved. Our next item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes from the July 12th meeting. Do we have a motion to approve? So moved by Commissioner Sauger, supported by Commissioner Duge. All in favor, please vote on your iPad. All right, the motion is approved. Next item on the agenda is public participation. You have 5 minutes per speaker. Please limit any presentations to items on this particular agenda for this meeting.
Hello, once again, Macomb County Board of Commissioners Subcommittee. Basically, I'm also in a time crunch, so I would like to point out to you I'm officially returning the budget so that I'm not falsely accused of taking it with me. I did want to talk about the budget amendment by Public Works. I find that our Public Works Commissioner is doing an absolutely fantastic job in light of the fact that there was a replacement of an incumbent of 25 years that did absolutely nothing, as far as I'm concerned, for the infrastructure. And I see here that this budget amendment is for $125,000 to actually clean up the drains, which is actually part of Public Act 40 of 1956. And the nice thing behind this is the $125,000 is actually being taken from wages and fringes and pension and human cost and actually going to actually cleaning up the environment. And I think that this is a testament to how change in government actually can allocate a different person to change things around for the positive benefit of all taxpayers of the county of Macomb. And of course, because I was on the campaign trail last year in the Public Works office, I saw so many drains that needed so much fixing. And of course, when you have somebody that's in charge just all of a sudden patting their pocket and all of a sudden using public resources for personal gain, now that that person's out of the public light, I feel that all of the funds that are actually being allocated towards public works improvements are actually in full fruition. So I commend Candice Miller for allocating this $125,000 from a human being that really wasn't working for the department anyway towards cleaning up the drains, and that will basically make our waterways safer for everybody. Thank you very much. Have a nice day.
Thank you. Any other members of the public interested in speaking? Going once, going twice. Public participation is closed. Next on the agenda then would have been item now 5B, budget amendment, Department of Public Works. We have our Public Works Commissioner Candice Miller here. Commissioner Miller, Steve, if you'd like to give
a very quick introduction and turn it over to Commissioner Miller. I believe all the facts that are laid out in the resolution sheet are fairly self-explanatory. I'll go over them if you want me to again. So years ago, decades, I've been here 27 years. This advance was on the books when I got here, so decades ago. The general fund provided a cash advance to the Drains Revolving Fund for $125,000. The way that worked, to my understanding, is allocations were made to local units for drain cleanup. Those units then repaid those amounts to the county, if you will, and it revolved that way. The fund has been dormant since about 2008, 2009 timeframe. The entire $125,000 is back in the bank. It's with the county. Commissioner Miller is then requesting to use a portion of her budgetary savings from 2017, which amounted to a little over $300,000 through July 31st, and allocate this money in a matching program to the local units. And so basically taking budgetary savings from personnel and allocating it this year, or a portion of it, $125,000 to local units. And Commissioner Miller can talk more about her ideas.
Thanks. Steve has told you most of this story here, but your master bean counter here is a very good bean counter, I would just tell you that. But when I first got here, I started I'm looking at all these drain accounts, trying to figure out what money I have and what's what. And there was a revolving fund that I thought we had some cash in, and I called him about February, and I said, I have this money, but now it's gone. And he said, well, you had to pay it back to the county general fund. It was always owed to the county general fund, but it was sitting there for 8 or 9 years, but it was never paid back. But then it was paid back in December, so then I didn't have the money. So I've been working him a little bit, and this is what we came up with, and I think it is a good proposal, and I appreciate his help and his support with it. He's great to work with. As he mentioned, we've been reorganizing our department. Some vacancies we're not filling, et cetera. We've got just through July a little over $300,000 in savings, and even though I'm the Public Works Commissioner, in my brain, I'm the Drain Commissioner. We're in the drain business over there. We're trying to clean out drains. So we're cleaning them out like crazy. And I've got you all a little brochure here when you got time. We sort of put this together on the fly. It doesn't even include all of them. I think we missed a couple of them. But you can see we're cleaning out open drains and enclosed drains all over the county already. In Clinton Township, Macomb Township, Shelby, Fraser, Harrison, Sterling, Washington Township, Warren, East Point, Roseville, St. Clair Shores. So we'd like to get everywhere, and that's our plan at some point here. But these drains literally have not been maintained in years, decades. In the case of the one in Sterling, in St. Clair Shores, we were just there. We have 3 big drains that have not been inspected since 1960, since they were put in. So we're some of these areas, these drains that we're looking at, we're finding illicit connections, the raw sanitary sewage going right out into the lake. All these drains that we're inspecting, we're looking at for all that kind of thing. Other areas, it's not concerned about illicit connections, but in the more rural areas, in your area, Macomb Township, we're up in by the Middle Branch right now, the Dunn Drain, it runs and eventually runs into the Clinton River. I mean, there's blockages the size of this room that have totally locked in over many, many years. We have a contractor out there helping us with our drain maintenance crews. But the reason I'm talking about this 125 grand, there's some areas we have some of the drain accounts, we have a little bit of money we can spend, but a lot of them we don't have any. And we're trying to incentivize the local communities to buck up a bit, to match. So we thought if we want to sort of see how we can do with this. And so we've already told some of the communities, if the board approved this, we'd have $125,000. Could be a 50% match. And just as an example, Ray Township the other night, very excited. They have a drain called the Priest Drain. They had a board meeting. They agreed to put $5,000. Maybe we could put $5,000 to a very big block that they have there. I told them, well, we'll see how we do here today, but I'm just giving you an example. There's a lot of interest around the county, and it's for any area of the county, any one of your districts. So I don't know how it's going to go. I just thought we would try it, and if we tell all the townships and the cities, I think we could have a lot of interest in this, and I'd ask your approval of such.
Thank you. Are there questions? Commissioner Kleinfeld, I don't see you on the list.
No, I was going to make a motion. I didn't have a question. I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, you'd like to make a motion?
I would like to make a motion to approve.
Thank you. Is there a second for the motion? Supported by Commissioner Leonetti. Are there questions? Commissioner Sauger.
Yeah, there's one drain I'm really interested in. I've asked for years, and I know you'll get on top of it. It starts at Van Dyke and 13 Mile Road, and it's a Red Run Drain. And I've asked for years for that to be, it's an unsafe place because there's cement areas you can, it's got to be looked at. And I know you will. But I was trying to look through all the pictures and see if that was one of them.
No, the Red Run is not on this. Now, the Red Run is what they call an intra-county. So it's Oakland and Macomb. And the Red Run so both counties it runs through, and we both have jurisdiction over it. The intra-county drainage board, has been doing some work in the Red Run. But, you know, the problem with the Red Run is, quite frankly, that is an outlet from the George W. Kuhn sewage treatment plant in Oakland County. And that's where they have all their combined sewer overflows come out of there. And I will tell you this now, because there's probably going to be an article in the Free Press maybe even this weekend, and you're going to hear these comments from me anyway. I already had a meeting with Jim Nash, who's my counterpart there in Oakland County, the water resources guy. Great guy. I love this guy. But let me just tell you what, as I told him, you are our friend, you are our neighbor. Neighbors don't always dump their stuff on their neighbor's head. And at some point, you guys have to have a better plan here, because that thing comes Red Run drain, then into the Clinton River and out into Lake St. Clair. And these, every time, and their system is designed for after 1 inch of rain, it overflows. Well, you know what? It's almost overflowing every single time it rains, it seems, anymore. And I know they say it's up to MDEQ standards. That means it's bathable standards. But it shoots into the Red Run drain like a huge fire hose is going on, and it's doing all kinds of, I mean, you can't do habitat restoration or anything like that. And I just told them, well, if it really is bathable standards, then please put it into Cass Lake and bathe in it. We won't even hear from us anymore. But I was not kidding. I meant it. Send it, you take care of it. But we don't have clean hands in Macomb County, because we have CSOs, overflows as well, out of Chapaton, et cetera. I know this is not what we're talking about here today, but I'm willing to give you at some point, maybe during our regular budget presentation, I'll tell you everything we're doing to address that. As Veronica knows, we just had a big meeting with St. Clair Shores and East Point about Chapaton and what we need to do to take care of our own problems here in Macomb County. But you know what? It's expensive, but generationally, we have to have a plan here. We can't just keep doing this, right, every decade, and nothing changes. So, but that's the Red Run.
Okay. Seeing no other questions. I'm sorry. I must not be running this properly. Details. Okay, you're there now. All right, thank you, Commissioner Toko.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner. I know that a lot of different things go into the cost of a certain project, and you cited $10,000 for Ray. Is there a way that you can tell us what an average drain cleanout would be? I mean, is there an average cost associated with that?
Not really. I don't think we know what an average is yet. I maybe haven't had enough experience at it yet to know. But we've tried to do. We actually sort of started this thing with Harrison Township, which has a lot of. And you'll see some of the pictures in here of the unbelievable difference. And what we told Harrison, this before we had this, but I said, listen, if we could pay for if you guys paid for the contractor, we could bring our drain maintenance crew there. And could we work together in that way? And that worked out very, very well. I'm not sure exactly what the average cost is. It just depends on what you run into. We are doing 8 enclosed drains in Sterling Heights, actually 13 miles of inspection. So I don't know what the project cost will be. We first are going to do, as Commissioner Myjack is on the drain board there, we just approved, along with Bryan Santo, and to do 13 miles of inspection of drains, almost all of them running along principal major, Van Dyke, Mound, Canal, et cetera, have not been inspected ever. Ever, okay? And these are huge storm drains, and who knows what we're going to find in there. So, and that's just the inspection. Then we're going to have to see if we have enough money to actually do some, whatever has to happen there, rehab or clean out, silt, sedimentation, removal, et cetera. So I really don't know what an average would be, but
do you expect this $125,000 to cover multiple communities, or?
Really, it's not much. Oh. I know you got budgetary constraints here, but really it's a drop in the bucket. But I thought we could start somewhere. And when my budget presentation comes here, I'm asking for an additional $75,000 for next year, so we could bulk it up a little bit that way. But I mean, this money could be gone, and I mean, I'll tell you, really, I'm probably going to have projects with this lined up in about a week, because there's been nothing done for such a long time. There's so much pent-up demand. So we're just trying to start here.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Duje.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Candice, welcome, and I don't envy your position at all. Going back to the Red Run drain, when we had that rain here, we had water going over the top of Ryan Road and so on and so forth. The George Kuhn business is very nice and dandy, and Oakland County is very, very proud of it. But shipping all their garbage in through Macomb County is not my idea of a good time, and I don't agree with it, and I hope you go after them hook, line, and sinker. I have a question about Chapton, actually. I went to St. Louis, and this is a while, at least 10 years ago, when we were redoing the pumps at Chapton. Are both pumps redone at this point of time?
Yes, those pumps have been rehabbed. And actually what we've done now, because it's so incredibly expensive to do it, we have put them on a life cycle program so that we're putting money every year in a reserve so that when they do have to be rehabbed again, which I want to say is in about 15 years, we will hopefully have the
Really?
money to do it because they're huge and they're very expensive.
Well, they had to take out half the building in order to get one pump out. And my understanding was this was done about 10 years ago, but it was minor maintenance since they were put in 67. Do we have any other pumps or stations like that throughout the county that have not been updated, have not been maintained to the level of the pumps at Chapton?
We have a lot of capital improvement needs in the county and for
Right.
the infrastructure in every way. The Chapaton is our major pump station, although
Right.
the drainage district that it serves is St. Clair Shores and East Point, principally.
All right.
Roseville comes through what they call the Martin Retention, which is also right in that
Right.
area. And that's it. So the rest of the county is in other drainage districts.
Right.
As you know, in Warren, you have your own.
Right.
And then we have this interceptor situation with the Macomb Interceptor Drainage District, which is in 11 communities again. And also, we've been having a lot of discussions with the northern part of the county because, for instance, Washington Township is going to put in a $10 million sewage treatment plant up there, which will only service a quarter of Washington Township, believe it or not. And the truth is, if we're going to have a lot of development, it's probably going to happen in the north.
Right.
And now we had Bruce Township and Ray Township, Armada Township, and the other townships up there in to talk about actually perhaps creating another drainage district up there for them, whether we run the interceptor up Garfield, perhaps all the way up, or build another pump station kind of a situation up there. So what we're really doing is we are going to do a master plan, which has not been done. We're going to do a master plan for the whole county for all of our infrastructure, and we should have, we're going to actually be ready to put out requests for proposal on that by the end of this year. So we're moving very rapidly on that, so we have a better idea of where are we going here with this.
Well, it's definitely a pain in the neck, and like I said earlier, I don't envy you your position.
No, we're having a lot of fun there. We got plenty of things to do.
There's always a lot of fun things to do, and regarding our previous conversations, it'd be nice to say, yes, in 2 years we're going to have another sinkhole at Area X that we're going to have to sink a whole ton of money into, but we don't know that.
No.
So keep doing what you're doing. Hopefully, with any luck, we won't run into any more problems the way we have. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Just one thing on that. We actually, like, for instance, in the mid, we are doing an inspection of 17 miles of the underground for the Macomb, for the mid. And no surprise, we've already found some issues, which we will be talking about at a later date. But we need to know where we're at with all this.
Thank you, Commissioner. We next have Phil Kraft, or Commissioner Kraft.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll be real quick because JP's sweating bullets.
Yes.
But thank you, Commissioner, for all you do. Quick question, real quick, with this budget amendment. If we do approve this, how are the communities going to be chosen? Are they going to come to you and present their problem, their drain issue, and then you're going to approve it? Or is this something that the Public Works Office is going to actively go out and seek these projects?
We're going to just let all the communities know that it's available. And, you know, we have so many people asking us already. That's why I say we already have Ray Township hoping you approve this right there. They've got their little project up there. I know you've been, I brought Tony Ferlini, who you all know here. He's sort of our drain guru. He's out there in the drains, a drain man. And I know you've been up talking to Janet Dunn in Macomb Township, and you're already getting there's a lot of interest. So I think we're just going to try to use our best discretion to see how we can do here and how we can try to spread it out a little bit, but I'm sure I think it's going to go like lightning here. Everybody wants a piece of this.
Thanks. I'll let my communities know. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yeah.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Leonette.
You know what, for JP's sake, I'll ask you on the side. Nothing major. Thank you. I'll pass.
Thank you, Commissioner. Appreciate it. Seeing no further questions at this time, we will take a vote on the resolution or the budget amendment. So, how do I?
Give it an impact adjustment.
Let's do a voice vote. We'll refresh. I just asked for a voice vote.
Okay, we'll ask for a voice vote. All in favor of the proposal signify by saying aye. All opposed, nay. Motion.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
your time. Thank you very much.
Mr. Chair, can we just get a real quick update on the sinkhole? I mean, I know that's not on the agenda, but
We actually have some people who are maybe missing flights and waiting for the next presentation that thought they were going to go a little earlier. So is it something that we can do as soon as possible?
Point of information, Commissioner Miller did kind of give me that update just a few minutes ago, and if you don't mind, in new business, I'll
Sure.
explain.
That'd be great.
If that's okay with you.
We had a problem, but we're back on schedule. We're still going to be on schedule and within budget, but we did have a problem. We had 9 foot of sewage in our shaft. So nobody got hurt. Nobody got hurt. That was the main thing. But I have briefed the chairman extensively, so he can tell you.
Okay.
Thank you.
You'll see it all over the news anyway tonight. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner. That's a good question. Next on the agenda, we have the approval of a Brownfield plan for 50500 Mound Road. We have John Paul Ray, the Director of Planning and Economic Development, to give a presentation. First, we will entertain a motion to forward this, and then we'll take questions. We have a motion by Commissioner Dujay, a support by Commissioner Kraft, and with that, let's hear what you have to say.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Appreciate the opportunity to brief the commissioners today. As we provided you with a brief informational synopsis last time that we were here, we are in the process of scoping out a brownfield redevelopment plan for the property located at 50500 Mound Road. Ultimately, we are in a series of negotiations, not only with the landowner and a series of consultants and a client that we are looking at a package of incentives. Today we have representatives from the consultant group that will provide you with an overview of not only the elements of the Brownfield redevelopment plan, and then after that we will yield to any questions that the board have and look to provide you with some more details as a $90 million proposed investment in the county. So I'd like to call up Luke Bonner from the Bonner Advisory Group, who is one of the consultants that is assisting with this project. Mr. Bonner.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
JP was sweating for us. Board of Commissioners, thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity to present. This project sort of epitomizes or personifies public-private partnership. There's a very short window of opportunity to put together a fairly large project on a fairly complicated property that you're all pretty aware of. The partners have been Macomb County Planning and Economic Development between JP and Jeff, Shelby Township with Rick Stathakis and Glenn Wynn, the development partners, which is Hillwood Company, represented here today by Greg Skovich. He's the one that's going to miss his flight, so we can actually take this as long as we want to. So that's already deemed he's missing his flight. And Sterling Group, which is Detroit-based. Hillwood is the regional office out of Chicago. AKT Peerless, who's represented here by Deanna Hutzel, and then myself from Bonner Advisory Group. It's one of those things where everyone literally joined hands and said, let's do this. And we've worked very quickly and very openly and very honestly with each other to move things forward. Just to reorient you in terms of what the site is, this brownfield plan encompasses the former Ford Visteon site. For the sake of the project's about 85 acres of that entire property. The site plan that's been submitted and essentially approved by Shelby Township provides for the potential of a 1 million square foot facility that has the opportunity for high employment growth. There's one more step in the process with Shelby Township, and that goes to their Zoning Board of Appeals on September 7th for a height variance on the building. I'd like to call up Deanna Hutzel from AKT Peerless so she can speak more intelligently to the environmental challenges on the property and what we're going to actually do in order to manage that environmental in order to make way for the development. So, Deanna.
Hi, I'm Deanna Hutzel with AKT Peerless. And I just want to speak a little bit to the environmental, as Luke mentioned. So the site is a former manufacturing facility, and those, since the 1950s, those operations resulted in soil and groundwater impact, notably some chlorinated solvents in groundwater that the owner is actively remediating. So to address that, the environmental response activities include environmental investigations to address due diligence for the potential purchasers. And after slab demolition, there's currently a slab in place on the property. After that's demolished, an active sub-slab depressurization system will be installed beneath the building. Direct contact barriers will be put in place on the exterior portions of the property. Stormwater management will be completed, including sealing the stormwater drains to prevent infiltration from impacted groundwater, dewatering and management of water during construction activities, and soil management during construction. Because the soil is impacted, it'll have to be handled appropriately.
Thanks, Deanna. The schematic you have on your screens, the pink and orange lines essentially show the extent of where that contamination goes and how that relates to the footprint of the building, the parking lot areas. And so there's quite a bit of soil remediation that has to take place. And then, as Deanna mentioned, there's a lot of precautionary measures that are put underneath the building and around the infrastructure that serve the building and public infrastructure to make sure none of that environmental contamination gets exacerbated. Now, the instrument for offsetting the costs related to cleaning up this site in order to make it viable for a redevelopment is the Brownfield Redevelopment Authority, which is administered by the Macomb County Board of Commissioners. Per the plan that was submitted, there's a little over $9 million of total eligible activities that go into the Brownfield plan in order to clean up the property to a certain level for the project to be built. In terms of the overall investment, we're anticipating roughly $20 million of machinery and equipment, around $60 million plus of real property investment, which is basically the building only. The acquisition price of the property is roughly $6.2 million. What we're expecting to occur, which actually sounds like it might be a little bit in line with the budget presentation, is about a 2.5% growth rate on land after the acquisition of the land and on the real property after constructed. And then we're assuming a standard depreciation schedule on the personal property that will be installed there. So on the tax increment financing assumptions, so the Brownfield Authority is based on a premise that once the project is built and producing new taxes that are greater than the taxes were produced before, the Brownfield Authority captures those taxes and provides a reimbursement back to the developer for the costs that were incurred to redevelop the site. So we do make an assumption after speaking with Shelby Township that the project will qualify under their guidelines for a 12-year PA 198 industrial facility exemption certificate. That's basically a 50% tax abatement. The millages that are impacted under the Brownfield Authority include the townships, the county, HCMA, SMART, the community college, MISD, and the veterans millage. We're anticipating a 20-year term on the tax capture, which estimates a little over $10 million in capture, which covers the cost of the environmental activities on the site. Now, accompanied with the Brownfield plan is what we call a reimbursement agreement. The reimbursement agreement is between the Brownfield Authority and the developer, and essentially what that does is outlines the responsibilities of both parties in terms of performance and making sure that all of the proper information is submitted in order to be reimbursed. That includes the written statement detailing all the costs incurred, proofs that the costs are eligible activities, detailed invoices from the contractors, and the Brownfield Authority has the power to approve, review and approve all invoices and process payments. And then just some additional considerations that are in that reimbursement agreement. In case, as we get into the project, more environmental contamination comes about than what was originally thought, we can go back and amend the plan to account for that. The developer and the eventual tenant will be reporting job and investment numbers on a regular basis. And there's also an opportunity to assign the Brownfield plan and reimbursement agreement to another entity or another third party to the actual development. So that is just kind of general overview of the high points of the project and what it's going to cost and the need for support from the county in order to make that happen. And I'm available for questions.
Okay, thank you very much for the presentation. Are there questions from commissioners? No, we've got people. So, yeah, good. It's not working, and I apologize to commissioners that I don't have a listing of who went in first. So let's start with Commissioner Kleinfeld.
Okay, let's see, I want to make sure legally I'm asking the right question, but delicately. So was there was there a confidentiality clause here? Okay, so my only question is with regard to the resolution, there's no legal requirement to name or state on our behalf. I just want to make sure we're not doing something we can't do. And as long as there isn't, I'm fine with that. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner. Do we have other commissioners that had indicated they wanted to speak but are not appearing on our board? Commissioner Duge?
Thank you. That being said, this is going to go in front of Zoning Board of Appeals for the height. Is there going to be any other problems with the height, width, length, or anything? Just the height, and that's it?
That's correct. The site plan, as I mentioned, was already approved by the township. Once detailed plans were submitted, there actually wasn't any concrete increase in the height of the building. It was actually what was constituting the portion of the building that was higher than the 40 feet limit, which is basically a decorative element as part of the building.
All right. So, pardon me?
A parapet wall.
All right. So this is not structural. This is... this has been in front of Zoning Board of Appeals and in front of Planning Commission, I imagine?
Shelby Township has approved the site plan.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Good to hear.
Thank you, Commissioner. Next up, we have Commissioner Romano.
Thank you, Chair. Two questions, if I may. First one regarding in the event that there's additional environmental problems with the property, is there a limit on what we could get on the hook for? I mean, I don't want to get in there and all of a sudden we get $10 million more in additional environmental problems. You're saying that in the event that there is, that you would come back for additional money. Well, how much money are you going to come back for is I guess my question, and your answer can't respond to that because you don't know. So is there a limit?
I don't know. Yes, there is a limit. The maximum term on a brownfield plan is essentially 35 years, 30 years of which is capturable for the project. 5 years could be captured by the authority for administrative expenses. So the term is 30 years.
I'm
That's
sorry,
maximum.
I don't understand.
Maximum is 30 years.
No, I'm asking about the environmental. If there's additional cost for environmental, is there a cutoff of what you're talking about as far as the cost for the environmental?
So we're saying the same thing.
Okay.
The maximum amount of years that you can capture is 30 years.
Right.
So right now we have 20 in this plan. So if there's additional
got it.
environmental activity
Got
that
it.
comes in, do you understand what I'm saying?
Okay. My other question is, actually, it's a question and a statement. How long, if this, and I'm sure it's going to be approved, but when we go for the recapture, what happens if this company goes belly up? I'm asking. I want to know what's going to happen.
You talking to the developer?
Yeah.
Well, given the track record, and certainly Greg Skovich is here from Hillwood Development. Hillwood's been around for quite some time,
So is General Motors.
over 100 years. Correct. This is a project that's not increasing or exacerbating contamination. What they're doing is solving the contamination issue. The project, I should say, the lease that's expected with the tenant of the building is a 15-year lease, which is bumping up against the time of total repayment.
Right.
So it's not anticipated, given the financial strength of this company and the financial strength of their tenant, that is something that's of concern.
Good. So I take it you'll give us a personal guarantee. Thank you, Mr. Bond.
Hey,
Last thing,
I have 2 kids I'm not having anymore, so I can't throw one of my newborn into this.
So how long is this before we get to disclose? Because you're talking a lot of money here before we get to disclose the parties involved. I mean, is there a certain period of time that we can say to whoever wants to know that here's what's going in?
Yeah, well, the developer's Hillwood. We know Hillwood. In terms of the final details of the project, I'd say we're probably still, probably mid to late September away from having all those details finalized.
Good. Thank you, Mr. Bonner. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner. Next, we have Commissioner Leonetti.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The previous occupant of the land, Visteon, right? Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. Are they involved in any of the Brownfield? Do they help pay for any of the costs involved?
Yeah, I'm gonna defer to Greg.
Okay.
Skovich on that. Sorry, Greg.
Thank you, Commission, for entertaining the Brownfield plan. Visteon is not on the hook. Ford has a covenant deed on the property, which basically holds them accountable for all of the existing contaminants on the property relative to the monitoring and the efforts associated with that. They did put in place a remediation plan within the last 5 years, and the groundwater monitoring efforts have shown that remedial effort is improving the quality of the groundwater. So, in an effort to expedite the cleaning operation, we're coming to the board with this plan.
Okay, so I understand that Ford, I'm going to assume they've negotiated something already so they can get out of it, or are they going to continue to monitor it once the property transfers? I mean, I guess my question is, it's Ford's land. It's where all the contaminants came from, theoretically. What can we expect from them, or do we have to worry about them bailing out of anything?
Not at all. We've been working hand in hand with Ford and MDEQ throughout this entire process. Ford has not made any suggestions that they're going anywhere. They understand and they acknowledge that the contaminants that are on site are theirs, and that they are going to be there to monitor and put in place efforts to address in the event that their responsibilities is exacerbated.
Okay, and so they're part of any reimbursement agreements or anything like that, or no, not at all? They're not part of that. Okay. All right, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Commissioner. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner. Are there any other commissioners on the interested in speaking? Just a quick question then. You mentioned Ford Motor Company. Are they going to be reimbursing any of the local units of government for the, what is about $10 million cost of cleaning up their property so they could sell it for a higher price?
Ford does not own the property.
The Vistion then, the spin-off, or whoever.
Vistion does not own the property. Vistion sold the property 7 years ago to a salvage company that took down the vertical structure, who then subsequently sold it to the current owner, who we are purchasing it from.
I see. A lot of these, I didn't realize it had gone through that many incarnations. And I know the Brownfield development program, to my understanding, was developed particularly for parcels of property where you really can't trace where the responsible party may have been, over a period of time. And, it's not sure whether this fits that original, I guess, intent of the program, but it sounds like it's had a number of different owners. Are there any other commissioners with questions? No? All right. Seeing none, we... Okay, the motion passes. Thank you very much for your patience, gentlemen. Okay, the next item on the agenda is Bryan Santo, Director of Roads, Budget Amendment for Roads. No? Oh, do we have something before that?
I would be.
Okay. Sorry about that, John Paul. I
No
saw
worries.
your name in there and thought we had already covered you.
All right.
So we got one for Economic Development Corporation. Grant, thank you for staying over for this.
No, appreciate it. Good news to report, we found $380,000, so that's always a good thing.
Any questions?
Through our continuous efforts to expand the defense footprint in Macomb County, we have been working with the statewide Protect and Grow strategy. As a part of our efforts to not only expand the impact of our defense installations, but also grow the amount of defense business that's been coming into Macomb County, a number of discretionary pools of money have come through the Michigan Defense Center. Through the allocation that they received through the state of Michigan, about $3.5 million, and the commitment that this board made through our budgetary cycle last year to deploy $100,000 for the F-35 initiative and our other installation-related support in Macomb County alone. We've been able to secure upwards of $320,000 in a grant through the Defense Industry Growth Areas Grant, and the price proposal associated with that illustrates a 2-year cycle in which in this first year alone, our county would be receiving $156,000 through the Michigan Defense Center to deploy a cybersecurity pathway training program in coordination with Macomb Community College and Wayne State University, a Protect and Grow aerospace supply chain effort that would give us the ability to target every single major supplier to the F-35 aircraft that is being considered for Selfridge Air National Guard Base, a deployment of our international landing zone, which has been able to give us a safe space where we're bringing in international companies currently from Canada, the United Kingdom, and Spain to establish business operations centers in Macomb County. And the fourth element is a big targeting system which would assist existing Macomb County companies in accessing DoD contracts, both that are on deployed through the Pentagon and through local channels here. Just looking for that amendment in our budget as far as the phase 2 of this grant cycle. The other thing that I very much want to highlight is our staff's effort to more or less target these discretionary pools of money on the defense side. To date, I believe we've been able to facilitate upwards of $400,000 over the past 5 years of direct funds that have come in through our department and have been deployed to Macomb County companies and special initiatives. So we're incredibly excited about the prospects of this and very much looking forward to partnering with companies and installations around the county.
Okay, thank you. First, we'll entertain a motion to forward if that's approved. Yes, Commissioner Lucido makes a motion. Commissioner Kraft seconds it. We then have any questions? Okay, seeing none. You wanted to do what? You want? All right, I'll put you on the list of say one thing.
Thank you. I'm sorry, I didn't press the button because I just got used to not pressing the button. Now we're pressing the button again. I'm gonna have to take some pros. I just wanted to say, I went to the air show and he had the brochure with regard to work he's doing on Selfridge and bringing in the airplane there, the F-35. it's phenomenal. I went through it. I just wanted to say, you know, in this, getting this grant and everything, I just wanted to publicly thank him for the phenomenal work he's done on that. Thank you.
It's all the team. I just stand up here and get yelled at.
Thank you, Commissioner. Thank you, John Paul, right? Seeing no other questions, we'll vote on the motion. All right, John Paul, is there some other thing, or can I move on?
I'm all done.
All right.
Thank you, Commissioners. Appreciate it.
Thank
I'm going
you.
to go pick up a 2-year-old.
Okay, we move forward then to item number 6B, right? 7B, sorry, 7B. All right, we'll go to 7C, which is the Director of Roads, Bryan Santo. Bryan, we've restructured the agenda a few times, so forgive my confusion.
No worries. Good evening,
Thank you for your
Commissioner.
patience.
What I'm looking for is a budget amendment for a previously budgeted and approved vehicle maintenance facility in the 2016-17 budget, moving that forward to the 2017-18 budget. That monies was not spent in this fiscal year, and so we don't double dip that $9 million, I want to move that forward to this next budget year that was represented by the numbers that Director Smeagol had represented in his discussion. So I'm seeking amendment approval for that. It's based out of our vehicle mechanics facility off 15 Mile Road in Nova in Clinton Township. And like I said, it was previously budgeted for and approved, and looking forward to moving it forward to this next year.
Do we have any commissioners interested in speaking? Seeing, okay, seeing none, let's vote. Kleinfeld, did you want to add one thing? Would you like to speak before we? All right, why don't we go ahead before we vote?
Go ahead and vote. Oh, I already voted.
So did I. I didn't vote.
All right, I just wanted clarification. Are we doing a budget amendment on the budget we haven't done yet? Because that's what it sounded like.
No, the current budget right now, I'm looking at taking that $9 million out of my capital outlay item and putting it back into my general fund.
Okay, I'm sorry. I misunderstood.
Okay, we are going to revote.
We're going to revote?
We're going to revote.
All right, let's revote.
Revote.
Brian's causing all this trouble.
All right. All right, thank you.
It happens.
Don't go anywhere, obviously.
Nope, I got a
Mr.
few.
Santo, you got a lot to go. Our next item is D, which is a cost share agreement. I don't know, is there any economy of addressing these as one motion to move forward, but then allowing commissioners to ask questions on any one of that block?
That works for me.
Okay, so I'll entertain a motion then to move items D through N. D through N, is that correct? Is one item, but then we'll open it up as one motion to move forward, and then we'll open them all up to questions. All right, it is moved by Commissioner Duge. It is supported by Commissioner Sauger. So we will then entertain questions on items D through N. Are there questions on items D through N?
The road's going to be smooth.
Yes.
Okay, we've got Commissioner Toko.
Thank you. Can you just give us a quick overview on item J, Roseville-Fraser?
And item 7J, that would be the cost share agreement for the City of Fraser for 13 Mile Road improvements. This is a roadway project that we're doing with cost share between Fraser, Roseville, and Rhodes. And as you can see for the summary, total project cost is $2,387,000, less federal funds that we have of $1,811,955. and a total shared cost of $575,045. The cost breakdown you can see with the different percentages below. This is a project that was brought forward as a result of the sinkhole. We had another project that we were looking at doing on Garfield, south of 15, from Utica 15, that we had to reallocate some funding because of the sinkhole issue. We didn't want a construction project right adjacent to that, so we looked at other areas to build, and this was one that we could slide some of our funding to and build. So basically that's where it's at. We are looking at getting that under construction probably this next month.
And how long will that last?
I would see the end of construction season probably till November.
Thank you. And who is the, is Florence Cement going to do that again?
Don't believe we have I don't think we have the bids on that one as of yet. I will double check on that and get back with you.
So this has to go out to bid now?
I will get a response back to you.
Okay. So we don't have a start date? I mean,
I don't have a definite start date as of yet.
Okay.
We haven't had the pre-con for that, which is obviously in the near future here.
Okay. Okay, thank you. So just for purposes of clarification, are we approving a request to go out to bid, or what are we being asked to approve today?
This is the cost share agreement for the anticipated project costs.
Okay.
The design engineering, the actual construction costs, all the oversight, the construction engineering, all that's broken down as far as total project costs, as you see on the sheet number 3, and the percentages of each community.
Okay. So who comes up with these costs then if we don't, and how were these costs established? Right.
There's initial estimates that are designed into the project. Obviously, we have a construction estimate, construction engineer's estimate. We have, obviously, the preliminary costs that we already put forth as far as the design of that project. So those are costs that we know. And then as far as the construction estimate, that's what we move forward with. When we get the actual contract, then we will come for approval, you know, with that, as far as the contract for that project with the contractor.
Okay. So are all of these cost share agreements the same thing? They haven't been out to bid yet, or are some of them have been out to bid?
No, some of these have been out to bid, yes.
Okay. Can you just highlight for us which ones are ready to go?
The 5333 road connector, that has been out to bid. That's with the Augustini and Sons. The contract for 29 Mile Road bridges, that's with Dan's Excavating. The contract for Fairchild, obviously, is Proline. The Mound Road repairs, 16 Mile Road concrete repair. Some of these I am actually unsure of as far as if they've went out or not. The ones that are listed that don't have contractors to them might be associated with our pavement preservation program, which did go out, and that was for Cadillac. So some of these HMA programs, like Shelby Township Asphalt Paving, the Roselawn Court Asphalt Paving, I believe those are on our pavement preservation program that did go out and was bid also.
Okay.
The concrete pavement repair program is bid out, and I believe that was with Florence. And then the Murray Street asphalt paving is part of our pavement preservation program, which is our HMA program, which was already bid out.
Okay. I'm very supportive of doing these road projects. I just want to know exactly what I'm being asked to vote on. Could you get clarification of that for this will go to finance and then to full board?
I will
So if you
confirm
could
all
get-
those as far as under contract, or not under contract, but bid out or not bid out.
Okay, that would be great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Leonetti?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good to see you, Brian. Question, of course, on item number 7N, which is the Murray Street cost share agreement with Harrison Township. I don't, in looking at the Exhibit A, it looks like the township is paying for all of it, 100% of it. Is that my eyes?
That is correct. That was
Okay.
a project that they brought forward with 100% on their end of it as far as the cost for that.
So it's not really a cost share then, is it? It's kind of.
Well, it's running through our.
I got you.
our
No, I understand.
Roads department, so.
No, I understand. One question is do we have any estimate, constituents are going to ask me, any estimate on when that work would be done? Has it been signed by the township yet?
It'll definitely be done by the end of the year.
Okay.
End of this construction season.
Okay. And one last question, Party Bridge again. I know it's not on the agenda. What's the status on when that's going to be done, the Party Bridge? I thought it was going to be next year, but it looks like this year maybe?
No, actually, we did close it just recently.
Okay, yeah.
Because we didn't have an evaluation on it.
Okay.
That will be in the spring of next year. We do have it budgeted for next year.
Gotcha.
As far as the removal of that structure.
Okay.
as
People
we
were
talked
asking me about it. Thanks for the side talk. Okay.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Romano?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Santo, you're the man of the hour. GH&I, naturally, everybody's looking at their own districts, which is Sterling Heights, which is Mound Road, Shaner, the other properties in there. My question is, was Sterling Heights approached and agreed to all this? Have they signed all these cost share agreements? Did you meet with them? Is this something you do by email? Is there something that we as commissioners should be present at for our particular districts?
The communities, City Sterling Heights is on board with these cost share agreements as far as basically the 50-50 participation with these types of programs. So
Same
yes.
question. So are they contacted? Do you physically see them? You just send them an email? Is there some reason that we as commissioners in our particular districts are not informed of this ahead of time? I mean, I have people, and I'm sure as everybody in their districts, are saying, when is their particular road going to be fixed? And I guess at meeting time, when you're meeting with these particular municipalities, again, I think my particular situation, I'd like to know when that's happening so that I could be present there, maybe put some output, not input, but put some output into it so that I can at least tell the constituents this is what's happening. And incidentally, this is all for next year sometime, am I correct?
These are for this year, this construction season.
This is going to be done this year?
Yes.
So I guess that answered that question. The other question was, again, how did you meet with the municipalities? Was it just phone conversations? Was there a reason why
We reach
commissioners?
out to each community, whether it's township or city, and obviously they bring forward projects that if we can formulate and fits within our budget, then we will move forward with a cooperation between doing projects in their particular area. You know, we have our own forces that go out and evaluate roads on a day-to-day basis or week-to-week basis, and in conjunction with the communities, not only your community but all the other communities falling within Macomb County, we get their input also as far as what roads they're looking at doing, what funding opportunities they have to help fund with those projects,
Right.
and if it's viable to fit into our budget with that community. So.
Okay, I don't know about other commissioners, but in my own personal view, I would like to be, when this partakes, I'd like to be available so that I could, again, let my constituents know, being their county roads, what's going on in view of, apparently some of the cities don't notify you, but being county commissioners, I think we should be notified when this is taking place. Just my own personal view. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Mr. Santo.
Just in regards to that also, I know we send out a program every year, and we send out a notice to all the different communities, and it's our sub-reconstruction program, which we have $2 million that we set out per year for match money to different communities. If there's a sub that needs reconstruction, and it's basis of reconstruction, not an overlay, we will participate up to $2 million with any community that comes forward that has a viable project. At that time, I don't know how it was done previously to my predecessor, how that happened. But at that same time, I'm looking at sending out an additional notice to the communities to bring forward projects that they're looking for, if they have match monies or areas that are of concern to their community at that same time. So I want to do that concurrently with that sub-reconstruct program as well as local roads within those communities to get that information earlier in the ballgame so we can look at budgeting and stuff early on.
Excellent idea. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Kraft?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thanks for being here, Brian. Quick question about the 29-mile road bridges. Where it says over drains, do you have another road, like a possible intersection that I can have a frame of reference for? Because I don't exactly know where these two drains are that the bridges are being improved.
They're on the westerly side. I can get you the exact drain crossing itself.
As long as it's not on the easterly side. That's what I need to know. I'm just wondering if any of them were in Lennox Township area or if they were all in the western part.
I can get you the exact drain crossing location as far as the exact drain. I can get that information to you.
Thank you, Brian. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner. Are there any other questions? Commissioner Sauger.
My comment to Brian is, when I'm curious about a road in my district, all I do is make a phone call. I get my answer and we're all done. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner, back to your, there is a heading here. It actually is over the Healy Brook and the Camp Brook drains.
Which are, I know I saw that and I'm just not familiar with where those drains are at. I can talk to Candice too, I guess. No, I'm just kidding. Thanks, Brian.
I'll get a map for that and send it to you as far as exact location.
Okay, Commissioner Kraft, thank you very much. Any other questions by commissioners? No? All right, then we will vote on the motion to advance. All right, commissioners, thank you. Thank you, Brian.
Thank you, commissioners.
All right, next we have the budget reviews. We begin. We welcome back Mr. Smeagol. And we'll be talking about, what's that? Oh, he's, right. The capital plan update, which, is it appropriate to talk about that and the capital improvement plan, or are those two separate items? We've got them listed separately here.
One folds into the other. One is basically kind of the status of what's going on with items that were on the 17 plan through the end of July. The next item is the next 5-year plan, so that they're interrelated, if you will.
Great. Then I will take a motion to forward these as one item, the two, and then we'll take questions and hear the presentation. Is there? Well, it says here, motion to forward. Motion to re-forward it to the file after we receive it. Do we have a motion? We have got a motion from Commissioner Lucido, supported by Commissioner Kraft. Very good. Then we will move forward with the presentation. Thank you again for sticking through the meeting, and we've already had some questions on this topic, obviously, so we appreciate your presentation.
You're welcome. The update is simply a list starting on page 112 of your agenda. Is it different? It's 112 on the agenda that was printed out for me, so I'm not sure. Okay. Assuming we're on the same page, you'll have a list of all of the projects that are on the 17 plan. And so you'll see that that list on the first page is a list of all the facilities and operations projects. They totaled about $28 million originally. The amended budget's about $38 million. The year-to-date spend is by project there, just informational. On the next page, you have, like we refer to them as ongoing projects, so carpeting, parking lot resurfacing, roofing projects, tuck pointing of various buildings, miscellaneous remodeling, those sorts of things are on the project or the capital plan every year. Same thing, you've got about a $3.2 million budget as amended for this year. We spent about $1.5 million through July. And then down below, you have a breakout of the technology projects. And Jako had put about $7.9 million on this year's plan. The total plan for the year identified approximately $49 million in projects. We spent about 16.2 of that through July, And at the bottom of the page is the funding. So we had $17 million in fund balance coming forward from the Capital Improvement Fund at the end of 2016, rolling forward to 17. The board appropriated a contribution of $17.1 million from the general fund to the Capital Improvement Fund in 2017 for total funding available of $34 million. We spent $16.2 through July. There's another $18 million that we can spend through the end of the year. So as you can see, and we've talked about this over and over, that we put items on the plan, we identify them, put them on the radar screen. They don't always materialize in the year that we maybe intend on them materializing, and they roll forward to the next plan. You'll see that on the 2018 through 2022 plan. So that's sort of the status of the current year plan. And we just kind of roll forward into the next year to the 5-year plan. Again, there's about 35 projects identified on the F&O list, I'll call it. We've tried to highlight the new items in red. There's a total of just over $45 million in funding that's being requested over the next 5 years for infrastructure in buildings and things of that nature. The ongoing maintenance budget is $16 million over the 5 years, or $3.9 million for 2018. And the IT-related items consisting of hardware replacements, software replacements, individual projects for departments, which could be anything, mostly replacement of software products, upgrades, that sort of thing. Scanning, there's a lot of scanning that's being requested. It's $25 million over 5 years, $9.2 million for 2018. So the total request, or items identified for 2018, are $40.2 million. We anticipate there will be about $13.4 million available at the end of the year in the Capital Improvement Fund. Again, we've talked about having bond proceeds of $20 million and a $7 million contribution from the capital, or the general fund, I'm sorry. So total funding available of $40.4 million, and we have $40.2 million, leaves us running, fairly dry in the Capital Improvement Fund. But we have some contingencies built into this plan, as we do every year. And then the final page, or 2 pages, are a list of the individual projects listed under item number 4 of the technology and equipment list. So this is by department and funding sources. So Lynn Arnott from Facilities is here to discuss her individual projects if should have questions. And Jako VanBlerk from IT is here to talk about any IT-related items that you may have questions about.
Okay, thank you. First question comes from Commissioner Kleinfeld.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Okay, let's focus on that first sheet. So that's original budget, amended budget. Did we do an amended? Did we amend a budget from 13 to 22 on these central campus renovations?
Well, there are things that are being funded through other projects that were rolled in from other areas of the budget, so the plan was not necessarily amended.
And when I spoke earlier, I acknowledged that there are things that may have once been going to be part of the capital plan that got rolled into that. But did we do any budget amendment of that nature so that we?
If it was rolled in from other areas of the plan, we wouldn't need a budget amendment.
Okay. Okay.
As long as the funding is, again, we're approving funding for the plan. So if we're taking items that were, I don't know off the top of my head, but items that were listed individually as an F&O project, maybe replacement of a lift station or something, or a VAV box that we might roll into the downtown project, we would
Okay, then let's look at, number 35, elevator replacement upgrades. The original budget was 600, amended is 926, and 877 has been spent. Now that's specific, it's elevator repairs or replacements, which probably came from the same company. I would assume you would, so was there a change order in the amount of $326,000?
No, not a change order. These are actually the elevators in the court building that were upgraded, and also the 2 county building elevators. I don't know if you recall, we were in the midst of renovating the elevators in the county building. One was complete, and then when the fire occurred, we stopped the project, and then we restarted the project.
Okay, so they weren't part of the central campus renovations?
No.
Okay, so the cost went, well, the budget was 600 and it went to 926. So there was a change of $326,000. If that was, how did that change occur? Was there any approval process from us on that? And what happened?
I guess I will have to go back and research that. I know we had some price escalations on the completion of that last elevator in the county building.
Okay, I think that's what I'm trying to figure out when there are price escalations, what our role is, because I'm not sure it's real clear, and I'm not sure I know. So thank you for that. Okay, so on the next page, parking lot resurfacing, that would be 3 down, went from 7 to 925. That also is not part of the downtown project?
No, we have a paving project every year, and we earmark certain areas to be done. When we get to the spring, like the spring of 2018, we'll do a final inspection and actually get further define the scope of the project.
Okay.
So they're tentative budgets. They go from year to year.
So, and I think I might see what's happening here. So that went from 7 to 925 in this budget, but we didn't do an amendment on that, correct? Because the total bottom amount went from 3.6 to 3.2, so that's where I'm going with this. So the roofing maintenance, let's see, parking, roofing, tuck pointing. Okay, so it went from 400,000 to 97. And then the mechanical electrical went from 500,000 to 173, which would explain one was canceled to pay for the other. So here's my question. Do those projects still exist, but they got pushed off into further years so that this could be the shortage on this could be covered, which would explain some of the reason why future years' capital outlay is coming in more expensive than we expected?
I mean, certainly we have roofing programs every year. Sometimes we don't get to complete the roofing program, or we see it's based on the estimated costs, we're going to go over budget. If we can put it off another season, we do that. But then in the following year, you will see that in the roofing project.
I think the reason I'm raising this is if we see a list of planned capital improvements from year to year, and one of those improvements comes in, say, 300,000 more than it should. And so what occurs is instead of coming to us and saying we need a budget amendment from the general fund to put another 300,000 in because that project came more expensive, other projects get put off for another year and they get added on to future years, thereby the future years go inflate out of control, or we weren't planning on it. So if that process continues, instead of coming to us and saying we were 300,000 over on this project, we didn't see this, they got down underneath the asphalt and there was a dump there and we had to take that out. We should be, if a contract goes over budget, it's 30, I kept saying 50. If a contract goes over budget more than 30,000, over and above the contingency and all of that, I believe we should be voting on that change order or however it takes place. And I don't think it's okay to have told us these projects are going to be done and then some of them get canceled and put off into future years to cover cost overages on other projects. So that's my opinion on that. I don't know where we're going to have to work something out here, but we can't have. Well, we're going to get a parking lot for $500,000 and we end up paying $800,000 and we don't know that. To me, that you should have to come and get more money out of the general fund.
Commissioners, if I could just attempt to possibly simplify the process. So when you look at this 5-year capital plan, when you look 3 or 4 years out, we just put an estimated cost in there based on what we believe it would cost if we did it today. We don't put price escalators in there, but if in the next year when we do our 5-year plan, if we feel that that project that we have scheduled for 2020 is going to cost more, we'll change that number. So we're just carrying our best guesses. I mean, based on the industry, I can tell you right now that just in the 2.5 years we've been working down here, the price of raw materials has skyrocketed, has exceeded all of our expectations, and so has labor cost. But look what's going on around us. Look what's going on 25 miles south of us. There's a shortage of contractors, so when the good contractors do bid, you know, there's price escalations in there. Everyone who's building is experiencing that right now. But to your point, and I heard what you said, so if we're carrying $500,000 for paving of a parking lot, and the parking lots that we did this year were over at Probate Court and for Kuhlman, had nothing to do with the downtown project. There are so many other properties. But we just carried that placeholder, that estimate in there. When we go and bid out, when we do RFPs, and we do competitive bidding, then the real number comes in. And then we will look, if it's 600,000, 100,000 more than we've been estimating for 3 years, then we try to maybe look at the capital plan and put some projects off or hope some other things that we bid out will come under budget. But all the money is coming out of the capital project plan. And I think we've explained to you in previous years that never in any year do we complete 100% of the projects. Not because we can't, but sometimes we realize that we can get one more year of life out of the heating and cooling unit on the roof, and why wouldn't we? I think that's prudent to do. But we do have enough money in there.
And I do understand that that's coming out of the capital plan, but the capital plan money comes out of the general fund. So I don't think that you're going to have upset commissioners if a project came in at higher unanticipated. But it seems to me that you would then say, well, I guess the only way to do that is if we're voting on the plan, because if we're not voting on the plan, I guess you have the authority to push other things off into future years, and then we're wondering how the numbers change so dramatically.
I think historically, the Board of Commissioners, even pre-new form of government, voted to receive and file a plan. It's a plan. That's all it is. It's a document that we use as a guide, and we don't always complete every project on there for the reasons that I stated. What I do believe is that if we only had $10 million in projects and we needed $1 million more to complete all the projects in 2018, then we better be coming back to the commission saying we need $1 million more. Because of price escalations or whatever, we need to complete more projects, and we're out of money because the allocation for this year example was $10 million, and it's going to cost us $11 million. That's when we should be coming back.
So if it is a plan, it's just a plan,
It's just a plan.
And it's not a budget,
It's not a budget.
then there should be somewhere in our budget, as opposed to just, commissioners, we need $10 million this year. and then it goes off over here, and that's where well, we'll cancel this, we'll add this, we're gonna do this project, we won't do this project. I think you know what my position is, and we might not agree with each other, but I think we're at least you're understanding what I'm thinking, and I'm understanding what you're thinking.
And I'll tell you, and just for the sake of while we're on that topic, and when Jako speaks to you about his items, you know, the question was raised last year, like realistically, Jako, who's our CIO, can you get to all of these projects? You know, can you get to all of them? And I think he answered that no, we can't, because he doesn't have the number of staff to get to them. And one of the things that we've talked about in depth in recent weeks is when these IT requests come in from department heads and elected officials, tell us what your priority. If we can, you know, you've got 5 things. If we can only do one thing because that's all we have the physical ability to do, what is your top priority? And then we do that across the county, and then maybe the first plan of attack is to get all the #1 priorities done. And maybe we don't get to 2, or all the 3s, or all the 4s. That's I think it's a more realistic way of planning what we're going to do in the immediate future.
Okay, and I only have 2 more questions. I apologize. The first is then forgetting all those individual things, if we go to the final grand total for 2017, which was $40,351,000, and it went to $48,973,000. That went up, the grand total, correct, for everything. Did we do a budget amendment to raise the grand total for that, of the money we move out of general fund into this?
Not that I recall. We were updating, most of that's an update for the central campus plan, if you will. So we're, again, moving money on the plan, updating it for what's been going on during the year.
Okay. My final question is then, in the future years, do we only have $8 million that we're gonna be spending on the central campus next year?
In 18.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Leonetti, you had your hand up, but I don't see on the...
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I guess this is a question for Steve or Mr. Deldon. And I'm looking at the 5-year capital plan. And I guess this goes along with Commissioner Kleinfeld's questions. Is there, and again, I'm new, so I don't know when this plan went into effect. It looks like it was starting in 2013, really. But is there a limit to the amount that we have for this capital improvement plan? Is there a final limit that we have at all? I mean, I'm looking at this thing here for the 5-year plan, and the anticipated costs are $164,242,690. Is that the limit if we were able to do everything we wanted to do in the next 5 years?
Well, it's all limited by funding availability in the general fund.
Of course. No, I get that. But I think the concern is we all want to get the things done. I think we're all on the same page there, but we're all limited by our resources. And I think the concern, at least what I'm getting from Commissioner Kleinfeld, is, you know, do we... I guess you guys prioritize over at the executive department. You prioritize, all right? And that's good. That's your function. I guess our function from a standpoint of the Board of Commissioners is, you know, what's the limit of what you think is priority? Maybe you folks think priority number 1 and 2 should be done, and maybe we don't have any real oversight on whether or not we think it should just be 1. And I guess maybe that's where the issue might be, if you understand. And I guess my concern as a commissioner, as sort of a check and balance, is just to make sure, you know, is there a limit at all to where we're going to go with capital improvement, with this capital improvement fund or capital plan?
What we try to put on the plan is having Lynn and Jako identify the needs.
Okay.
There's no real fluff in the plan. It's just identifying the needs and then determining how we're going, how we're going to fund those. And you'll see a lot of these things on Lynn's plan are items that are eventually going to need to be addressed.
Okay.
We either do it today or we wait, which we try to do, but at some point in time, HVAC systems are going to need to be replaced or they're going to break down. Then we're going to be scrambling trying to get it done. So we're trying to address it up front. The IT projects, IT moves fast, so
Sure.
there's updates on, you know, technology and server blades and whatever else Jako can explain in far greater detail
Sure.
than I can.
And
So
I-
we
and I
try to
get-
just identify where we're
Right.
going and what we're gonna need.
And I get that, and I understand. Mr. Delden explained this is a plan. It's not necessarily something
Right.
that's concrete. I get that part of it. I guess the concern I have then too, and I'm jumping around, is if you look back at, you know, the first document you gave us here, and Commissioner Kleinfeld was talking about the parking lot resurfacing, which is item number 3 on ongoing maintenance projects. So the original budget was $700,000. It ended up, we amended it to $925, and it looks like up to July of this year, we spent $816,526. I guess that increase from 700 to 925 was based on the executives prioritizing what needed to be done for that parking lot. Is that?
Lynn had identified in terms of needs.
Well, I mean, for example, you know, right now, we have paving needs every year, and we're estimating that, you know, 3 years from now, we're gonna need to spend another $500,000 on paving. But in the spring of that year, as Lynn says, when her people assess the parking lots, maybe because we had a heavy winter or a deep frost, maybe more deterioration has occurred, so we've got to do more square footage of parking lot paving than we originally were anticipating.
And that makes sense. I completely get that. I guess the question is, and I'm going along with what Commissioner Kleinfeld said, is, you know, what role does the commission have in whether or not you get those? I mean, it went from 700 to 925, and it appears that the commission did not vote on that increase in that budget. And we don't know, I guess, where those funds came from. If it came from the overall capital improvement fund, this number that I don't really have a grasp on what the limit is.
It comes from the money that's put into the capital project budget from the general fund each year.
Right.
And every year you will see a line item with a recommendation from the executive requesting to put X amount of dollars or millions to fund some of these improvements. As I had stated earlier, one of the things that is kind of creeping up on us is the significant amount of capital needs that we have. And it was just our recommendation that we floated out here tonight, that to relieve some pressure on the general fund and to preserve our fund balance, let's throw out the idea of floating a $20 million bond, and we take specific projects in that plan, some of the bigger ticket items, because the bill's going to come due whether we do them this year or next year. The price next year just might be more.
Okay.
And it's only an attempt to preserve fund balance, and because we're going to, you know, on a $20 million bond, we probably would have a $1.5 million debt service payment every year, as opposed to spending $20 million of our fund balance.
I got
So it's only an idea that has only been talked about between the executive's office and finance for about the last 3 weeks. And as we were putting the budget together, looking at the big picture, looking 10 years out, we said we need a relief valve here, and that's what we proposed tonight, and you heard it here for the first time. Obviously, we've only been talking about it for about 3 weeks.
Okay, that answers some questions. And then one last question for Director Schmiegel, I'm sorry. What is, and I haven't had a chance to go through the whole budget yet, we got it just last week. What is the amount that the executive is recommending that we take from the general fund and put into the capital fund, regardless of this $20 million bond that just came up today? What was the number? Do you know what it is off the top
For
of your
17, or for 18?
For 18, that's correct.
7 million.
So we're talking about putting $7 million into the general fund, from the general fund into the capital fund.
In addition to the $20 million of bond proceeds.
Okay.
So 27 million if we didn't issue bonds.
Gotcha. That's what I needed to know. Thank you very much. Thank you for your answers to my questions. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner. I don't see other commissioners. I have a couple quick questions, if I may, Dave. And forgive me that if these are obvious, but under some of the new projects that are highlighted in red, particularly under the repair and replacement projects, item number 28 is Washington Elementary renovations. Do we own an elementary school?
No, we lease space.
Oh, we lease space.
So they want to do some kitchen renovations. Rhonda Powell would like to do some kitchen renovations.
Okay.
Yeah.
I see. Okay, thank you. I did. I was curious. The other question is on the following page, the IT projects in red. One of them is listed as border patrol cameras new. The way it's titled, I would think that if it was a border patrol issue, that we would get federal funding because we're patrolling the federal border.
Yeah, this is a 75-25 match program. So it's a $3 million project. I believe there's 6 cameras, I believe, along the shoreline of Lake St. Clair.
Uh-huh.
So it's a $3 million project. Vicki Wolber is anticipating a certain amount, 1.2 million in 2020, 1.8 million in 2021. If you go to the following page, I'm sorry, back one page, excuse me, you'll see that we have some match money coming in 2020 and 2021 under federal and state grants.
So we would put the money forward in 2018.
Yeah.
And then later there'd be federal money coming for us to
Same
patrol
year,
the
yeah.
border.
Well, no, you'll see that the money is being spent in 20 and 21.
Oh.
And then the money's coming in 20 and 21.
Okay, so this is your first on the plan is in 18.
Correct.
I see.
Right.
Okay.
That's what the red items are, is items that were added to the 5-year plan for the first time
Uh-huh.
in the 18 to 22 plan.
Okay. I mean, this might be above the pay grade, but I would assume that anything that a state did or a local agency did for national border security, we wouldn't have to pay 25% of.
Generally, there's a match.
Well, what if we didn't do it? Would the federal government just let people pour in over Lake St. Clair because we won't put up 25%?
If we didn't do it, then we lose the grant money.
Okay, well, that would be
So
good. Then we could use that money instead, the 25% for the sewer cameras that we are responsible for, that have been requested, that we can, use to deal with our county problems. So I would suggest that we let the federal government know that, no, thank you, we're not going to patrol the border. We're going to, use the money to deal with our sewer issues and sewer cameras requested by, Public Works Commissioner. And anyway, it just seemed a little odd that we'd be paying 25% of that and think that we're getting a bonus somehow. Any other questions by commissioners? Yes, Chairman Smith.
Thank you. Steve, on the 5-year capital Schedule 1 for projects, it shows the original budget, the amended budget, and then the year-to-date, how much we've spent. And there's, under projects, it says we've spent $515,633. And then, but on the project list, I don't know what page this is, but on the big project list, that's blank all the way through on what we've spent year-to-date. So I'm just wondering where that $515,000, and if, I mean, these pages are so confusing that if you want to come up and look what I'm looking at, that would be easier, that's fine. And not confusing based on you.
I'll look into that, Commissioner. I think, yeah, I'll look into that. I may have to update the 5-year plan to roll in. I did the 5-year plan before I did the update. I may not have gone back and circle back and updated the year-to-date numbers.
All right. And then, geez, where's my other one? So on the Public Works, I have a question about the image scanning of documents and workflow. We have 17 estimated of $75,000, and then 2,000 remaining is 2.1 million. What is that? The 2.1 million?
The 2.1 million is scanning all of their, basically their blueprints and all their drawings of all the drains throughout the county.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you've ever been in the basement.
Yeah. Yep. So you know that these
It's
are
on the IT. Oh, it's on the IT projects. And Jako may be able to speak more intelligently to this, but as far as my knowledge is, they have in the basement they have drawers and drawers of drawings, and this is to image and scan those documents.
Right. So we started in 17 and we're going to put 70.
The first year that was on the plan.
Okay.
So it went from a $75,000 project to a much larger
2.1 million.
Right. And the drainage funds, the proposal is that the drainage district funds would
cover
provide
it?
half the funding, the general fund would provide the other half of the funding.
So is that 2.1 half, or is that 2.1
2.1
total?
is the total.
Okay.
You go back one page,
Yeah, and,
under state, federal, and local funds in 2019, 1,050 is half of that.
I don't know. Oh, well, one, all right. Sorry, we have, I appreciate we have so many different pages with this, trying to figure out what the heck's going on. And would it be safe to say it'd be good to talk to the contractors when they come in about the capital project and, you know, the differences between the original and the 22 million that are now? Would it be better to talk to them about that at this point?
Originally, we were going to be doing a downtown campus project budget update tonight, but
So
your office requested that we hold off until a week from today.
Right. So I was kind of bringing that up so we could kind of wait on that one for anybody that's looking at that to talk about. All right. I don't have any more questions at this moment, but I'm sure we will as soon as I figure out what page I'm on.
So at this point, I don't have other speakers. So with that, we will vote on the motion to receive and file. All right. It has been successfully received and filed. Next item on the agenda is a budget review for information technology. Jako, thank you, and Steve, of course.
I will do my normal introduction. I believe I was told that everybody has a separate booklet this year with the budget, so we don't.
Before we do it, I need to take a
confusion about
motion to
page
receive
numbers.
and file the report, and then we'll take questions and hear the presentation. So we've got Commissioner Lucido making the motion to receive and file, and we have Commissioner Toko supporting it. Thank you very much. Okay.
Okay,
Thanks, Steve.
so the budget for the IT department can be found on page C45 of the budget. The total budget, is everybody with me before I start? Okay. So the total budget for IT being recommended for 2018 is 8.3 million. The amended budget for 2017 is 7.9 million. That's an increase of about $388,000. Jako is requested and is being recommended for the addition of one position in his department, a database administrator, at the cost of about $104,000. The contract services line, you'll notice, increased about $135,000. It should be noted that $54,000 of that increase is actually being transferred in from the budgets of the district courts for the support of their Quadtrans system. So that's just a shift between departments. So the true increase was about a 2.5% increase, or $81,000 in that particular line item. And Jako can talk about what's going on in that line item. The other line items are fairly straightforward and consistent with prior years. Again, I think the big change here is the addition of a database administrator, which Jako requested at least for the last 2 budget cycles, maybe 3. So with that, I'll turn it over to Jako.
Okay, thank you. Jako?
Good evening, Commissioners. Thank you for the opportunity to discuss this budget with you. I kind of mixed the 2 budgets a little bit, my operational budget as well as my capital portion of the budget. And that's just to give you a brief overview of what we did this year. As far as the operational general fund budget goes, we really did not veer much from the previous year's budget, but like Steve just mentioned, there's a few additions. Regarding the capital budget, we really continue to improve this process. As you saw tonight, discussions around this. There's a lot of challenges around this to make this a budget, and I know last year when I was in front of the commission, questions came up about this being a wish list of things that we want to do. And I think tonight, really it's a plan that's out there with, budgets for the next 5 years or items for the next 5 years that we're trying to address. And obviously prioritization is a big problem for us. So one of the things we did put on the list this year, and I did send a list of the projects and the priorities at least per department, so you can see how that's prioritized. So that's something we did this year. Ultimately we would like to prioritize these budgets across the board, but you can imagine that's a pretty involved process, and we will have to have all the stakeholders around the table. We're also working with finance to incorporate for the next budget cycle a checklist of items that would either qualify or disqualify an item to be put on the budget. Currently we do a little bit of that. It's not a very formal process. When my client liaisons go out to the different departments, they do that and they have specific instructions around that. But if we can get a list that everybody agrees on, and then, on that list obviously would be things like whether an item is mandated and so forth, and there's many categories that you can put on there. But we'll work with finance and get that ready before the next budget cycle. In the general fund, we've requested, this position that Steve talked about, a database administrator. We've submitted for that for the last 3 years. This is the 4th year that we've requested. This position was let go or given up in 2008 when the economy was turning downwards, and it was at the same time the financial system was moved into the cloud, and we didn't have to take care of the budget side of the database side of things. We have looked at maybe bringing that system back in-house because we believe we can do that cheaper by doing that, but this is one position, for instance, we will need for that. We've also done a lot of database work. Overall in the county we have almost 300 databases. And one of the jobs that a database administrator has is to make sure that our databases are being maintained properly, and that things run, things work, but databases can slow down your environment quite a bit. So that's just one of the many functions that a person like that would do. We've also, and I know there's been questions in the past, we did, for instance, the study for the police department a few years ago about jail population and so forth, and it comes down to big data and data analytics, and this would be a baseline start for us, for somebody that can dedicate, their time to databases and also eventually start building up that area of our business, because data analytics is something that is going to happen, and it is, I think, very important for the future to start, making use of that. Cybersecurity obviously is a big thing. Everybody talks about that, and every single thing we do touch on cybersecurity. We got a new position last year for a security administrator, Stephen Monato, and Stephen has done a great job, so far. And I would actually like to, at some point in the future, bring Stephen to this committee so he can explain to you what we've done, with money allocated to cybersecurity over the past year and a half. And you can also see how our position has improved. I think it's very important. Everybody tells you it's not a matter of if you're going to be attacked. It's just, when. And there's so many things happening that, just very important part of our business. The budgets that we did, you know, it aligns with the short-term goals that I submitted in the BOC supplement, as well as our long-term goals. You know, we're in the process of strategic planning, which I talked about last time when I was in front of you. The process is going a little bit slower than what we thought, but on the other hand, it's a very good exercise for us because we're really learning a lot about our business and how things work and how we should think about you know, our future and align ourselves. So that we anticipate of having completed this this financial year, 2017, and will obviously help us to have a better outlook when it comes to, you know, our 5-year capital plan, as well as, you know, just our general fund items in general.
Okay, thank you. I have to have a couple quick questions. One, you mentioned that bringing some of the database administration back in-house, you believe that could be done less expensively in-house?
Yes.
Do you know, or have you done any sort of guesstimate as to how much it would actually save per year if it was brought in-house?
The previous time, you know, when we outsourced this, it was a very different scenario because we were on a different database, an Oracle database. We made a significant change since then and are really moving all the county databases to SQL, which is you know, Oracle is more robust, but it's used by banks and places like that, and very, very expensive solution. You know, by going to SQL on all our databases, it really makes us much easier for us, as well as you know, less cost to maintain it, because we have quite a bit of in-house expertise to maintain the you know, the back end of those databases, and then a database administrator would be the person that do all the
right. But how much less cost?
I don't have the exact numbers for you. I actually tried before this to get numbers from the company where it's outsourced at the moment, and you can imagine that it's going to be a little tricky to get that information.
How do you know it'll be less cost then?
But I would say it would be significantly less than what we pay the company currently.
Okay.
I just don't have that number for you today.
Well, I guess I'm just looking at
and that's not the only thing. I mean, I'm talking about that as one of the benefits.
Right. I'm wondering what the cost is compared to the hiring of a new database, you know, administrator. Would we save $50,000 a year, but be spending $77,000 a year, or something along those lines? The other question, I just had a quick question. This is on, not specific to this one individual, but on the looking at the salary range minimum maximums. This might be more for you know, Steve, but are those just salaries, or those total cost to the county in salary, benefits, and so forth?
You're talking back in the appendix or the addendum?
Well, under the on one of the pages of the stuff we have, we have, I have it identified as page 171, which is the position schedule by department for the IT department, I believe. No, by this page here, which is identified on my thing as page 171.
Yeah, position schedule by department, those are the minimum maximums of the base salary only.
Okay, so the cost of would actually be larger when you factor in
Correct.
health care and.
The cost of this position is around $77,800. That was in one of those pages of my presentation.
I see that under the. Oh, okay.
Oh, I'm sorry. Thinking of a different position. It's $104,117
Okay.
with all the benefit rolls up. Thank you.
Right. Okay, so we're talking about $100,000 more, but we're not certain exactly what it would save on that one element. But you're saying this person would do more than just that in housing.
That would be one of the items. Like I mentioned, we have many databases, and we've taken on a lot of new systems in the county, and those systems are in need of database administration.
So if we were then to hire this new person, what area of the budget should we reduce spending because we're saving money by bringing them in?
Well, like I said, this is something we gave up. I also, in my estimation, I don't think there's any county with our size, with that amount of databases today that work without a database administrator.
I believe you guys are very efficient. I'm just curious if we're going to save money, though, by hiring this person. We'll spend 100 and some thousand, but we should save money, therefore we can lower spending at some other part of that department budget because of the money we're saving.
I just give you the one area where we can possibly save money, but the ROI in this case for us as IT is more of a maintenance item than it is.
But a few minutes ago, saving a very substantial amount of money, you said. So
I absolutely, but I cannot give you that number.
Do you think it'll be more than 100,000?
I don't think it'll be more than 100,000, but
Okay.
probably in a range of about $50,000, $60,000.
I see.
That's my guess.
Okay, well, that gives me some perspective on the issue. Thank you. Are there any other speakers? Bob's not on here. All right. Chairman Smith.
Thank you. Jako, thanks for coming here and presenting tonight. I have a couple of questions. And, just back to Commissioner Drolette's comments, your ROI is really based around being more efficient and getting, that. But we're here kind of looking at a budget. And if you're saying that, this guy can actually save money, if we don't do something or look at maybe reducing something, then that money just stays there and then gets spent on something else, which of course you would probably need, but maybe want rather than need. I don't know. So I'm just, we are kind of a little bit we're looking at things, for the good of the county, but on a little different angles here. So let me ask you a question about overtime wages, and I appreciate you kind of adding some of the comments in early on these things rather than waiting for us to ask. There's a $50,000 increase in requested in overtime wages, and it says it's for Windows 10 upgrade in 2018, but it's projected out for 19 and 20. So if it's just to get the upgrade in 2018, why are we carrying it on? And maybe Steve could answer that, or you could, or is this an upgrade that's going to continue on that we need that $50,000?
I saw that, and that is truly in my, guesstimate, a miscommunication between me and Mr. Steitler that I talked to. Okay. My focus is specifically on 2018.
Okay.
Because we have a dire need. We're going to upgrade the whole county next year to 2010,
okay.
Which means that most of my work is going to take, or my technicians' work for that is going to take place after hours.
Okay. All right, thank you for that. And under contract services, we amended 2017 to 200,000. And if I remember right, in 2016 when we were looking at it, you were looking at that new position, the security administrator, and I believe that we might have lowered down your contract services by 80,000 to then kind of hire the new contract services or the security administrator. Then now we're jacking it back up $80,000, which really isn't I was under the impression we were kind of saving here to pay for this person's salary, so to speak, or close, and now we're asking for it back.
Yeah, the position that it was for was the business system administrator, on-base administrator for last year's, that was the position what it was asked for. At the time that we had that discussion, and I'm not talking about the board, I'm talking about my discussions with finance. At the time that discussion took place, I offered up $80,000 for 2017 to fund that position for 2017, with the understanding that I will get my $80,000 back. I also, at the end of last year's board meeting, there was a bunch of questions that I received from Crystal that different commissioners asked. That was one of the questions, and my response to that was exactly that I would like to have that money back in the budget, for this year. I also want to mention that in our conversation last year, one of the commissioners asked me, and we were on the topic of why are we not, contracting more services if we have such a difficulty completing our projects in a specific year. And, obviously that's important to us. That contracting money is very important to us to be able to fulfill our obligations.
Okay. Well, and you, I'm sure you had that discussion with Steve, and I don't doubt that you gave us that response, but I remember it, which doesn't necessarily mean it's right, but as being kind of we need a position, this is kind of how we can help fund it, and it wasn't, in my eyes, wasn't for 1 year, and then we have to find, basically, so now we're going up 80,000 plus the person's salary that we brought on last year that we have to tackle somehow, so just something that jumped out at me. But thank you. I'm good, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Commissioner Toko.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. With regard to the $54,000 addition for the district court, what is the Quadran agreement?
Quadran is, our courts, our circuit courts, uses a application or a case management system called Court View, and that's where they enter all their case data and so forth, and where the judges obviously get their information from and enter into. The system used by the district courts, specifically Romeo and New Baltimore, is called Quadran. It's a hosted system, and that hosted system has been paid for at some point in time by the courts. Last year, we renegotiated the whole contract with them, for an additional term, and at that time, that was put into IT's budget, just the maintenance portion of it, because traditionally we pay the maintenance of the different systems. There is, there's a bill that we split out from that, which is their operational cost, on an ongoing basis, things like stamps, and there's all sorts of fees that the district courts themselves still pay.
So
that is maintenance for the two courts to use that system.
So this is already a contract that's in place?
That's correct.
We're already on the hook for that?
Yep.
And the district court doesn't contribute anything towards that?
The district court at this point in time just pay the fees on a monthly basis that they consume, and I cannot tell you exactly what that is.
They pay the fees for this software?
Not for the software. They pay the fees of everything they consume, and I'm just using one simple one. It's stamps, but there's a lot of things. I think their bill is around about $1,500 a month per district court. But the actual maintenance for the use of the application, we pay that from IT.
And is that by statute, or is that by just history, or what is?
It was what was decided. I've been here 13 years, and they've been on that system this whole time. And that's the system they use. We unfortunately, in the court system, we have probably about four different systems we have to deal with.
So is it possible that they could have been added to our court view system and then utilize the same systems that the circuit court uses, so that we didn't have additional expense for them to have a different system?
It is possible for them to be added to that system, absolutely.
And would it have been at the same price as this? I mean, I guess now it's a little...
That I cannot tell you. It has to be, obviously quoted out, but I would say probably very similar.
Okay. Okay, thank you. And I just wanted to mention, too, I appreciate your notes that you attached to it. That's very helpful. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Seeing no other commissioners, we will now vote on the receiving and filing of the report. Okay, thank you. The motion has passed. Receive and file has passed, and thank Thank you, Jako. Appreciate your time today and your work on this, on the budget. Next up, we have facilities and operations. Steve, I guess Lynn's been sitting there looking very, very patiently for a very long time.
The facilities budget can be found on page C35 of the budget.
All right.
Again, if everybody's with me, the total budget for the facilities department is about $15.7 million. That's only about a $15,000 increase over 2017. However, you'll notice, as I mentioned this in my overview presentation, there's a large decrease in the pension and retiree health care line. So that's, giving the appearance that the budget is only going up $15,000. The most notable item being added or recommended to be added to the budget of facilities for 2018 is one position of a maintenance supervisor, and Mr. Deldon will speak to that item as soon as I conclude my comments. So the total wage increase in full-time wages is about 1.4%, which is a combination of the 1% across the board increase plus the impact of this one position. We also added some money for grounds maintenance that would fall under the supplies and services line item. And so that line item increased about $90,000, and then we added some money for utilities, about $200,000 for utilities as a safety net, basically. Lynn can speak to that request, but again, probably the most notable is the addition of one position, which Mr. Deldon can speak to.
Good evening. I'll be brief. I promise. I'm hungry. I want, this is kind of unusual for me, but I wanted to come up and advocate for this one, just the one position that's being asked for. And for those of you that have been here for some years or many years, this is a department under the direction of Lynn Arnott-Bryks, who, by the way, has been here about 43 years and one of the longest serving directors in Macomb County government. This is a woman who comes to work every day, is quiet. I refer to her myself as kind of a gentle giant. She walks softly, but she carries a big stick. She's responsible for 1.8 million square feet of county-owned buildings, 21 government-owned buildings, the third largest general fund budget in the county, the sheriff and the health department only being higher than hers, but nearly $16 million. When I started digging into this, 12 or 13 years ago, she had 30 more positions, 30 more FTEs than she does today. 30. And she's a team player. She never asks for hardly anything. She's not afraid to ask for things, mind you, but she never asks for anything, and that's just that's a sense of her loyalty to this organization. But when I started looking at the bigger picture, just last year we brought to you one custodian position for F&O, and you granted that one position. But part of that deal was we reduced, we eliminated a part-time position. So in the last 12 or 14 years, she has only increased, she's down 29.5 positions. But in that time, ironically, and probably more so since the new form of government, F&O and her staff under the direction of Lynn, and by the way, her only other administrator is Ben Treppa, who you may know, he's the deputy director. So two people run one of the largest departments in county government. They are now responsible, since the new form of government, for the Comtech facility, all cleaning, maintenance, and repair. The roads building, which is attached to it, that was always, those two buildings were always handled by the road commission. For the last 10 years, the old county building was only 50% occupied. The rest of it was empty. That's now full. There's 2 more floors on this building. When this building was built in the late 90s, 2 floors were not built out for future expansion. They're now going to be occupied. Freedom Hill, since we have opened that park, there is maintenance work that we do over there on a routine basis. We lease quite a bit of space over at the former Max Thompson Elementary building. It's called the Thompson Center now, down in South Warren. We take care of that on a maintenance type basis. The Washington School, the former elementary school in Mount Clemens Community School District, we do work. So there's been a lot added to their plate, and on top of the $15 million budget, she executes almost all of the capital improvement plan on the facility side of it. So there's a lot to do, and I'm here advocating for her and her department for a maintenance foreman, an additional maintenance foreman. It's probably a position that tops out at mid to upper 50s, but what you'll see about a $77,000 number. That's with the fringe benefit cost added into it. So I just wanted to advocate the importance for that, being an old school facility guy. And again, it's about protecting our investment, and this will go a long way in helping Lynn and Ben continue the care and oversight for our grounds. So I'll turn it over to Lynn now.
The mission of facilities and operations is to efficiently operate and maintain the county facilities. As Mr. Delden indicated, we're at about approximately 1.8 million square feet of building plus the grounds. It is the facilities budget that pays all the utility bills, trash pickup, building repair, equipment repair, janitorial supplies, grounds care, the grass cutting, the snow removal, carpet cleaning, upholstery cleaning of the furniture. And we also pay the property insurance and also the Centrex telephone lines. All the emergency systems are run on a Centrex line, so that's your fire alarm systems, also your elevator emergency phones, and in addition we have many of the boilers alarmed and also some of the sump pumps alarmed. Like they said, like Steve Spiegel indicated, the increase from the 2017 budget to the 2018 budget is an addition of $15,425. In the operations end of the budget, some of the line items increased, some of the line items decreased. In supplies and services, we requested an additional approximately $90,000. The rationale for that request is we would like to enhance some of the landscaping beds and also devote some of the money to tree trimming. It sounds a little insignificant, but it goes to the total appearance of the facility. We tend to do this through the grounds care allocation. What is tricky about that, depending on the amount of snow and salting, that can wipe out that budget rather quickly. So we ask for that additional money. Also the utilities budget. We actually increased that budget by $214,560. It sounds scary, but what is happening, the expenses for the utilities at Martha T. Berry, the electric and natural gas is actually the expenses now being run through this budget, but will also appear as a revenue. But that line item had increased. We also asked for an additional money in terms of the water bills. We do see an increase in water charges. We also had the city of Mount Clemens replace most of the meters to compound meters. A compound meter has 2 measuring devices and a valve in between. So it's picking up low flows of water and also high flows of water. The less sophisticated old meters weren't always picking up the low flow of water. We also see a decrease in building repair and maintenance, mostly attributable to the county building. When you have a new facility that's been totally renovated, you end up seeing a decrease in building repair and maintenance for a certain time period. Also with the 2 floors of this building, and the renovations going on in the different floors of this building, we will see those, or hopefully see those expenses decrease. Vehicle operation expenses, we requested the same amount of money, so there was 0 increase in that budget. Internal services line item. This is the budget that the liability insurance is paid out of, the property insurance, the vehicle insurance, the cost for the copy machine and the fax machine, and also, as I have mentioned, the Centrex lines. We see a $19,000, almost $20,000 increase in that line item. As Mr. Deldon indicated, we have asked for an additional employee. The maintenance supervisor is another eyes and ears out there in the different facilities. They can sometimes find things and actually alleviate a lot of problems by finding them sooner rather than later. Also, the goal of facilities is to continued focus on energy conservation. This is not, the expense of the energy conservation appears more in the capital plan rather than the operating budget. We have targeted the jail project. Also, one of the projects in the capital plan is the replacement of the intercom system at the jail. And I want to replace the lights to LED lights. The intercom is in the different cells, and all the individual cells is actually in the light fixture. So we want to focus on the energy conservation. We want to focus on JJC, another 24-hour facility. We also want to continue with the outdoor lighting. We're also getting into using iPads with our trades and boiler refrigeration personnel. We have a computerized work order system. We're trying to also integrate a system where we have a wealth of information. We have as-built drawings. We have institutional knowledge going out the door. We're trying to capture all that information, and it isn't enough to just scan a document. We want to put it into a usable format. For instance, we want to be able to supply the plumber when he goes out to the job site, that he can bring up on a dashboard. It can indicate where the shutoff valves are. It can give them information on different electrical systems. So any of the trades, if they're out servicing mechanical systems, they can bring up all the information on the system, all the maintenance and repair history of the equipment, the maintenance manuals, and we think that would make them work more efficiently. But it takes a lot of gathering of information to do that, because we just don't want to scan information. So those are our goals, and our long-term is the development of getting all that information in a usable format.
Okay, before we go to questions, I need a motion to receive and file, made by Commissioner Duge, supported by Commissioner Sauger. Thank you. Our questions first come from our Chairman Smith.
Thank you, Lynn. How are you? So I have a question. I'm certainly for your extra person here. It sounds like you guys have been doing an awful lot with an awful little for a long time. But I do have a question, because it states in there that it'll be funded with new revenue. So I'm just wondering if you could explain, maybe Steve could explain that. Yeah, I'm sorry. That'd probably be better. Because it shows, projections show 20.
It's funded through a reduction in the contribution to the park fund. So previously, we were paying parks maintenance. We were paying for
someone to come
overtime
in.
For public works employees to mow the lawn and that
Right.
sort of thing, and we were paying for a road employee to kind of manage the park. So what's happening is this position is being added to the facilities budget, but there's a corresponding reduction in the contribution to the park fund. So it's new revenue in that sense. It's a reduction in a contribution.
Okay. And then since you're there, on charges for services and reimbursements under revenues, can you just tell me what makes up your charges for
So
services,
charges for
2.8.
services, basically building rentals. So space that we rent to the state of Michigan is a fair amount of that.
Mhm.
So we rent space at Majestic, Southeast Health, Vaculin, various places. So
So-
that's rentals.
And that went down.
Yeah, the state
they
vacated
pull out of
or
a
didn't
few
renew
things?
their lease at Majestic,
Okay.
if I recall correctly.
Well, it's going to expire next
Yeah.
year, July 31.
Okay.
Right, so they're not renewing.
And then what about reimbursements?
Reimbursements is, I think, where the revenue's coming in from Martha T. Berry. Correct. For the increase in the utilities.
Okay. And then you mentioned, Lynn, about the energy efficiency and going, we've been talking about this, and eventually, our utility bills should level off and maybe come down. I realize we have a recapture time of, spending, but that's on the other side of things. Do you see that happening at all yet? Are you able to see anything like that coming out of these?
Unfortunately, it's not that easy to see.
Mhm.
All the buildings at the service center are on one primary line, so no individual building is metered separately. So when we make these improvements, you'd like to be able to look at the utility bill and see a decrease. Also, a lot of the utility costs, if we get a particularly hot summer or cold winter, we will definitely see that in the utility bills.
All right, so we're not
We're
going to see it. We're
hopeful-
not going to see an overall until all the buildings that are on that one, then we could
Yes,
probably judge it like
yes,
that, I
yes.
imagine? Okay.
We certainly are very hopeful with the jail. It's a 24/7 facility, so we expect to see the decrease.
Okay. And then contract services, I have just a question for you. That's gone up, I mean, a modest amount, but we've looked back at the average, it's only been $227,000 for 14, 15, and 16. And in 17, we went up to 271, and now we're going up again. Is there something going on with contract services that are, I mean, just based on averaging, it's lower than what we're putting into it, and not by a lot. It's not a big number. I'm just wondering what our contract services are.
We're looking at restarting the window cleaning in the county building that was suspended after the fire, and also carpet cleaning. We do that twice a year, so that's where we see the increases. We will also see it in the 2 floors in this building. We will be doing the carpet cleaning, upholstery cleaning of the furniture.
And on that note, I understand that we are filling all these buildings up, and that's costing us more, but all these people were somewhere, so are we finding savings from not renting other buildings and pulling them back to here? I mean, does it equal out at all, or, I know.
We're going to, if you, when you have more time to analyze the 5-year capital plan, you'll see that 2 years from now, we are proposing to demolish the old probate court. But for the rest of this transition, we need to use the old probate court to house still one judge on one side of the building and use it for other temporary office space until all the renovations are done down here. Right. But then we're going to demo that building at a cost of about $400,000 or $500,000. Because if we leave it empty, history will repeat itself, and somebody somewhere will see some empty space and want to move a program in there, and then we're just throwing good money after bad money. It's an old building, it is not energy efficient, and we need to take it offline. So we will see those savings.
Right. And did we rent places too for some of these, or was everybody at one point all in county buildings? They were just in outlying county buildings that,
We were able to actually utilize the Tomer building, and that, I believe, was free for X number of months.
Yeah, and I don't mean just through the construction. I'm talking like the prosecutor's office for years didn't have, so they had people all over the place. But everybody was in some type of a county building. We're not saving on rent anywhere by pulling people out. Okay.
But several of our buildings were underutilized. They were they weren't being used to their full potential. That building, because it hadn't been upgraded in so many years, people didn't want to work there. So community mental health used to be in there many years ago, I understand, is that correct? And then they found a nice office on Palmer Road, but people didn't want to work in there. So we still had to heat the whole building, but yet no one was in there. So I think, through this plan and consolidation of services, we'll be able to take some of our older buildings offline.
Got it. Okay. Thank you. Thanks, Lynn.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a quick question on the additional personnel that's being requested. That's a maintenance supervisor, do I have that correct?
Yes.
They will be doing things, I'm sure we contract out our basic janitorial services and so forth. So they wouldn't be involved in that contracted out service. What type of jobs would they be overseeing?
A lot of the park maintenance, we have assumed that responsibility since the Parks and Rec employees, they eliminated that department over the years with the downturn of the economy. This person is going to be more the eyes and ears. They can monitor the contracted services, make sure that the individuals are performing the carpet cleaning, the cleaning of the restrooms and things like that.
Okay. Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You had talked about like sort of creating a database of scanned documents and then creating like a dashboard. Would this new position, would that person be in charge of doing that, or who do you have doing that right now?
No, we're looking at it with the IT department, and they're going to steer us through that process.
Okay.
Because I got to admit, I don't know a thing about computers.
No, I get that. I just was wondering if there's anybody in your department now, or if this new position, I think it's a great idea. I think it's a really good idea because then you retain the knowledge as we lose people. But I didn't know if anybody in your department was doing it or if it's strictly IT that's doing it.
We're doing it with the assistance of IT. Now we're trying to put them, I'm probably the best person to go through the drawings. I can visualize where they are. I can say, no, there was a renovation, so you have to find that drawing. But I want to input all this information so that there is some sort of history and it's easily accessible.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner. Well, and by the way, thank you for your very dedicated service to Macomb County.
Thank you.
Nice when I come back and I can see a familiar face. So
It's just that I had brown hair before.
So did I. Commissioner Sager, Commissioner Duje, you're out of order. Commissioner Sager.
Lynn, I just want to say you've done a great job here all the years, and then nobody ever hears you be griping about nothing. I don't know how you do it, or did it, and you did a great job.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I've loved my job all these years, so thank you.
All right. Seeing no other speakers, do we have a motion on the floor to receive and file? So we'll be voting on our iPads. All right, the motion has been received and has been filed. Except for Commissioner Duje. You're going to go with a yes this time? Yes. Okay, Commissioner Duje votes yes. Motion passes unanimously. We next have correspondence. We have a series of correspondence. I don't have to take them individually, or we're going to take a motion to move in their entirety. We have that motion by Commissioner Kleinfeld, supported by Commissioner Duje. Any discussion on the correspondence? All right, all in favor of the correspondence, vote yes. Okay, I believe the correspondence has been unanimously corresponded. We move on to new business. Is there any new business to be brought before the board or the committee? Commissioner Smith.
Thank you. Commissioner Miller, I was lost for a second. I'm hungry. Came into my office and explained a little bit about what happened with this sewage backup. It was sewage. It backed up to 9 feet in that trench, and in the area where they were putting the liner in. It then sunk back down to 6 feet. They now have it pretty much all evacuated out of there. They think it was from a silt backup downstream where they were coming around with the pipes and then dumping it. They're still having problems with all the dirt from the initial break. They're not 100% sure what happened, but they're pretty sure that that's what happened. Based on everything that's been going on, they're ahead of schedule already, so this should not put them even behind schedule because they're anticipating this maybe knocking them out for 4 or 5 days. They were a week ahead. The biggest problem was the machine that takes those pipes and puts them in was down in the trench at the time, completely submerged. So they had to take that back. They're working on another one or getting this back very quick.
Just the person that we should send down there to take a look at it.
Okay, well, I'll tell her that you have that person, but.
Yeah, sure, no problem. He's not here for public.
Commissioner Toko had a question?
Yeah.
Is there a cost associated with this?
We didn't discuss any extra cost, and I think they do have some built-in contingent fees on this type of thing happening with the contractor. She did mention that they had some anticipation clauses in there on some, things happening, and she's very surprised that this is the only thing that's happened up to this point. But we did not discuss if there was any extra costs involved, but I think this sounds like it's covered in their plan. We'll find out. I'll find out, and I'll get you an answer for tomorrow.
Okay, so did you get the impression that it came in, or was there a crack in the
Nope.
new work?
Nope, they think it backflowed from downstream.
Okay.
So the bypass pipes go around, and then down, and it's a decline, but they think something backed that up, and bad combination of everything caused a backflow of it up into that pit. So.
Thank you. Thank you.
Street problem.
So that's it. Nope. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, I do also want to introduce. So for those of you that were with us last year, you might remember Sam. Sam was the gentleman that we hired last year on a contract basis to help us with our understanding of the contract. Sam, why don't you come on up for just 1 second? We were lucky enough to be able to contract him into helping us again this year. We thought it would be a good fit. He seemed to get along well with everybody, understood what was going on, has a lot of experience in budgeting, and he's a CPA, he's got his MBA, he has a bunch of other acronyms that I don't know. And he did a really good job for us last year, helping us break down a lot of the questions. He's taking a look at the budget from a perspective that most of us don't have, maybe except for Sabatini last year a little bit. So feel free to forward. He's working with Crystal on a regular basis, and feel free to forward any questions that we might have on the budget to them. That's who's going to be looking at it, Crystal and Sam. And also he's going to be doing some investigation on his own to just make sure that everything that they're saying actually looks right and is right. So, if you have any questions for him, I think we could, if you'd like to hear from him for a second. Anybody want to get out of here? Yeah. Yes.
All right. Commissioner Leonetti.
Thank you. And you don't have to answer. You can get back to me. Steve on everything was talking about how they recalculate these pensions now. He says there's a new formula now, and then when I was looking at the budget, almost every department has $200,000 less because of this new formula. So maybe you can explain that to me, and maybe you can verify that that's correct. Because when I look, it looks like everybody's pension is down for 2018, and he's claiming it's based on some type of formula. I have no reason to doubt him, but I'd like to know a little bit why.
We'll put that on the list.
Yeah.
Off the top of my head, what I heard him say was, in the previous, the county.
Sam?
You might want to come to the microphone if you would, please.
Okay. From my brief understanding here, it sounded like he said, you guys cut off participation in that pension plan 2016, but they had continued to include employees who hired in after that as part of the pension cost. They are now reducing that headcount and taking that cost out of their anticipated future costs, which is why the department cost dropped. At least that's what I heard.
I heard that part too, but then he said something about some kind of census number, and that.
Well, I think that's the headcount coming out, so there's fewer people and fewer dollars, I think, but we should definitely confirm.
Right.
That's across the board on every department. It's reduced by so many, like 200, 300.
Right.
Now, Sam, just so you know, Sam's not going to be here at every one of these meetings. He's going to be working, over a computer and talking a lot with Crystal. He does have another job. That's why we just were able to contract him here. So don't expect to see him at all the meetings, but especially when we come down to making actual real decisions, he will be here. All right? Thanks.
Welcome back, Sam. Okay, next on the agenda is public participation. Is there anybody from the public wishing to speak? Going once, going twice, going 3 times, public participation is closed. We have a motion to adjourn. Do I have a second to the motion? We have a second. All in favor of adjournment, say aye. Or vote, rather. All right. Let's wait till we see what the vote is before we leave here.
You wait.
And,
How'd that vote go in?
and we are unanimously adjourned.
Good job. Good job.